Hello, 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 everyone. This is Nevernan, and today I have a special guest with me. Boomp, say hello.
Hello, everyone.
Alright, Boomp is one of the heads of Monotype, and it is a pleasure for me to have him on this recording with me. So, today, both of us are going to be talking about MWP7 and what is going on in that metagame. So, without further ado, let's talk about the big elephant in the room, which is not surprising to most of us, but Dragon's overall dominance of the tournament. What do you think about that, Boomp?
Honestly, I'm not surprised about it. Dragon is like one of the strongest types in this metagame. All Dragon really needed at the end of the day was really a solid special defensive wall, a good defensive core, honestly, and the fact that our Caldon Hudra really holds the type together. Coupled with we see Specs Dragapult come in, Band Dragapult, Rage and Bold editions. Man, like I really love how this type is really pushed over the edge this metagame.
Yeah, I've seen, and through me using Dragon as well, I've noticed like how incredibly powerful each of their breakers are. I'm a little bit surprised because if I look at the usage sheet a little bit, for Dragon, I don't really see a lot of Walking Wake, but Walking Wake has also been doing pretty poorly as well. I thought this mod would be used a little bit more because of its pivoting power, but it seems like it's not performing as well as I thought it would. What are your thoughts on that?
Honestly, it's kind of hard to try to fit Walking Wake on Dragon builds to the fact that you once you put that slot in on like a special breaker or any type of pivoting, you have already like a few mons above that could be really strong in that slot. We've seen the additions of the Scarf Ray Moon with the U-turn. We've seen Rage of Bolt dominate even more matchups. It benefits in the fire matchup. It benefits in the flying matchups. It can do a little justice in the steel matchup, but really strong in the water matchups. Fairy matchup as well, since Fairy loves running that double water core and all that type of stuff. And they prefer more breakers at the end of the day on the special side than Walking Wake. Walking Wake is supposed to be there to help, quote unquote, you know, the Fire Cat C team ground to an extent and to a more extent to be this whopping steel killer, but you can always just compensate that role into Specs Dragapult that does basically the same job, but a little more better due to the speed.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Another thing I've been wondering is Garchomp. I feel like Garchomp is like really strong every time I see it, but it's not brought a lot on Dragon. Do you have any idea as to why?
Dragon comps right now really is hard to fit based off what it wants to do. It really tries to benefit from the defensive nature of its Archaludon plus Hoojer core and just to shine away with four more offensive mons. Garchomp coming in Dragon comps is kind of weird and iffy as you're trying to dictate whether you want to go more of the hazard stacking comp route, which then it allows now it forces you to be in an uncomfy position of added in like a band pole, whereas Specs Pole is like one of the strongest breakers that Dragon has on the special side right now. Or they try to go for more so of a setup sweeper type, type guard chomp. But overall, like you have better options that does that job better. Like you have, Raging Bolt that could literally just set up like crazy if you really want to. Dragapult at times could run DD. Dragonite could come in and run a DD set with that same things and have better typings with it. That's my thing about Garchomp.
Alright, that makes a lot of sense. Because, yeah, I do notice that, especially on the teams that have Hazard Stack, they tend to struggle, like, putting out offensive pressure as much as they want, because it takes them too much
Yeah.
time to get that Hazard Stack set up. So, yeah, that is definitely a good point. I'm glad I got to figure that out. Uh, Next thing, before we move on from Dragon, or before we move on from Dragon, I just want to make a comment on the uses, or the usages
Okay.
of the Mons themselves. So, obviously, we just talked about Garchomp and why it isn't used a lot. Gudra, Dragapult, and Archaludon having near ubiquitous usages is not very surprising, because they're just super strong together.
Uh,
But, I'm surprised about the lack of Latios. Do you want to give some insight on that potentially? Because I know it's because Latias is just really good with H-Wish and stuff like that, but I thought it would be a little more common on like the more offensive builds. What are your thoughts on that?
A lot of uh, a lot of metagame trends right now have we seen in the Dragon Cores is they like to utilize the fact that they could be more offensively like threatening and kind of play quote unquote like recklessly. And in the back, Latias is just a good roll compression and speed control with the healing wish. So it doesn't even matter if let's just say your Poet is at one shot range or like your Arcaldon, your Raging Bolt, or any your Moon, whatever. It's just like Latias just fits that little compression entirely right there, and giving your breakers a second chance at coming back. Whereas Latios is kind of weird to try and put. It's don't get me wrong, one of the strongest breakers like Dragon has to offer as well, and it's really flexible. But it's just lacking that department on type of Dragon builds that we have been seeing in this NWP.
Hmm, I see. All right. Let's move on from Dragon for a bit and move on to the next type. So, a lot of people were saying that Steel was going to fall off due to people prepping for it more, along with other things. But as we've seen, Steel has been doing really well this tournament. So, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm not surprised on that. Still is still one of the strongest types. I love how Goldango, I love how Goldango holds the type together, especially with the fact that Steel could effectively has a stack real good into this metagame while allowing Iron Treads to knock off all the boots to apply all that chip pressure and everything. And the fact that Goldango could literally just come in and just dissuade defog attempts, status absorption, all that type. It's a strong defensive core that still can really benefit from, and that's what I really love about it. We also seen that still, as well, is always struggling to figure out what does it want to do in that sixth slot. Whereas you want to go a more offensive route with Scissor, or you do a more defensive route with Hisuian Gudra, where people prefer due to the fact that still main's weakness is not really having anything on the special side to like come in and take on hits like Pump from Greninja, Dark Pulse, Shadow Balls, you name it.
Yeah, I've also found that Gudra is also a somewhat decent check into Volcarona, which we have seen a couple of times, but it is a very scary mon for Steel to
Oh yeah.
work around, especially if their Heatran gets caught out at for any reason. That could be very scary. So it's nice to have a fallback for that, and also just to be able to phase out Volcarona in general.
Yep.
But yeah, those are some very good points. I've seen a lot of Corviknight, and they're mostly the bulk up builds. I haven't really seen that before. I thought usually they would just be like it's just a U-turn variant of Skarmory, but I've been seeing Skarmory and Corviknight paired up together quite a bit this tournament. Do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, they just formed such a good core together. Stacking up on like the dual flying type ins really help have like a late game win condition once all like everything else just went down the bag, especially against types that's really is not really prepped for the bulk up Tom Corviknights. You could really like offensively like pressure, or not offensive pressure. You could offensively like stall break like Oxapex trying to hex you. Steel Mirrors is annoying with this bulk up Corviknight. Fighting doesn't really like dealing with it unless you try to like bully it with Sword Sense, Iron Hands. Even Fairy doesn't really like dealing with this bulk up Corviknight to an extent.
Hmm. Yeah, I have seen it be like really scary when it's brought, so that isn't super surprising. But yeah, when it comes to the mods that are used on Steel, obviously Heatran's number one, and as well as Goldango, because those two are just really strong together.
Yep.
Um, Iron Treads, I believe Iron Treads isn't even like, is he even S tier on Steel? I actually don't remember.
I think he's A tier.
Yeah, but you would swear from this usage that he's S tier because it's really crazy for an A tier mod. I'd say.
Yep. Good compression. Really good compression. Good speed tier. Especially the reason why. It just does too much. It's a great offensive utility mon overall. You can offensively threaten Lando Eye so that the ground matchup is basically instantly GG. It could knock off rapid spin, you name it. Like it has such a colorful moveset. What you want to do? We've seen like a lot of different sets being run too. We've seen air balloon, which is the most common, and you've seen freaking choice spin iron treads really showcase. Like I really enjoy this mon. This is one of like my favorite mons on Steel.
Yeah, it's very good. And I did remember seeing that choice band Iron Treads game. That was very surprising, but it did a lot of work in that game. So next thing, now this is going to be a big type to talk about. Water. Has always been like a type that has a ton of variety that it can run, but I think this tournament especially, it's been ridiculous how many different types of water teams we've seen. Like we've seen rain, we've seen bulky offense, we've seen some stall, and we've also seen some other forms of like regular offense as well. But like, what has your been your favorite one to see so far? What's your favorite archetype that you've seen?
I think my favorite archetype to see right now. This might be basic, but I like to see like the different rain builds that's been happening. I think over the years of like monotype rain, like rain always had like the standard go-to mons, but this what you call it this NWP we really showcase like a lot of variety and like rain builds that could happen. We not only seeing like freaking Barraskewda to an extent, we're seeing Kingdra like is taking that spot. We're seeing rain builds without like pegs. We're seeing a low Momola in rain builds. We're seeing Swampertless rain builds and stuff like that. Like
Yes,
we're
the
seeing Spectrum
sorry.
Arena in rain. I love it. I love the variety SV Water has provided for rain.
Yeah, I noticed the Swampertless Rain actually had it used Walking Wake as the electric neutrality, and it actually opted to not have an electric immunity at all. That was really interesting. I liked seeing that.
I
But
like seeing that too.
the next thing I've noticed is that there's been a couple of bonds that I don't think we've seen a ton of before. So Melodic for one, it doesn't show on this sheet, but it was brought like a couple of times this week, and it has been. I don't think it's been, or not this week, but last week it was brought a couple of times, and I don't think it's been reflected yet. But Melodic has been doing pretty good on the teams that it's been on. Do you have any insight on that mon or Slowking?
I, when I saw the Milotics and stuff, and I saw Twinkie brought out the Milotic, I'm just like, I don't know what in the heck this is going to this is going to run. But seeing that actually like have self recovery, pivot options, all the type of things, and seeing Chaitanya like run it as well, it really showcased like the variety of what Mons Water could really utilize to still win games. We have seen the Slow King offense Water builds bring in. I really enjoy like how they utilize Slow King on Water builds. I love how they love utilizing the pivoting and chili reception and utilize Scarf Basket Legion F. They're kind of trying to punch holes with the compression, and Ban or Shifu is really good in this metagame for that comp. I love Ban or Shifu. You can't go wrong with any type of Shifu, to be honest. Scarf or Shifu is really good against a lot of comps. Ban just punch holes real hard against Steel and Dark. Like man, water is so fun right now.
Yeah, it is. Another thing I noticed is that obviously water is very very high variety, and a lot of the usage of the mons are spread evenly, but a common trend does seem to be Hisuian Samurott and Toxapex, which Toxapex isn't very surprising. It's probably one of the best defensive mons in the game, but Hisuian Samurott having 80% usage in this tournament is very very interesting, especially with its higher end win rate. So what are your thoughts on Hisuian Samurott? Do you think it's like low key kind of Giga OP, or
Yeah, this mon is one of the greatest the greatest mons SV has to offer. I don't think you should ever drop Hestia Samurai. It does too much. It's a strong breaker, rather you go jolly or adamant with it. SD is just so good in this metagame. The fact that it can compress an SD plus hazard stacking as well to help out waters. It's so good. We've seen it used on like even stall builds. We've seen like the Trichotomy's team utilize stall with like focus ash lead Assyrian Samurai and stuff, and it really showcased the variety of this mon that could run on playstyles.
Yeah. I also remember seeing that game and it was just like, wow, I can't believe he actually brought that on a stall team of all things. So I thought it was actually going to be bulky offense, but no, it was just straight stall with Sicilian Samurai. I was just like, this mod really can do it all, can't he?
Clearly.
Yeah. Last thing on water that we're going to talk about is Ogrepon Wellspring. I, throughout my time playing this metagame, have seen Ogrepon Wellspring on water a little bit more than I've seen it in this tournament. I'm really shocked at how little it's been used. Do you have any idea as to why that could be?
It's kind of just overall, like when you think about like the actual metagame and what it accomplished, you have like two other mons that can do that job as well as really more effective in the long run. Like you have Urshifu that can literally punch the same holes as it wants to do versus like ground, steel, fire, depending on like if you're utilizing, Scarf. Considering Samurai kind of does that job as well, but the speed control it also has is like, priority and stuff like that. And it just kind of feels clunky trying to fit both Water Pond and like let's say Urshifu on the same team. Whereas Orgapon Wellspring is really, really dope for like, mirror wars, but like overall, like you rather have like other options in that one slot than in Water Pond, in my opinion.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. Alright, so let's talk about some of the lesser used types. So, Fairy, for example, I've been championing for Fairy for a while, especially before the tournament started. And it having this high of a win rate with the amount of games played is genuinely very, very good for me to see. And it also had like multiple mirrors in the previous week. So, what are your thoughts on Fairy in this metagame?
I'm actually happy and excited to see Fairy at a 72% win rate. That is pretty good. A lot of people thought Fairy had fallen off because it's such a predictable type. Same core, same sets, and all this type of things. But now we seeing variety of what it could do. We have seen multiple times. Katarine is utilizing like an air balloon with Trick Room. We're seeing Primarina. Not only is just not the standard calm mindset. We've been seeing AV Primarina. We've been seeing Specs Primarina on builds. Iron Valiant's still a guessing game. Rather, it's the four attacks E build, four attacks Life Orb or Sword Stance knockoff Shadow Sneak or Ice Punch. I've been loving the variety now that very has been happening, especially like what Tinkaton brings as well.
Yeah. These the Mons on Fairy are very fun to use, I will say, and it's actually one of my favorite types in this metagame. I really like Fairy, and I'm really happy that it's doing so well in this tournament. I think one of the main things that I was worried about with Fairy was Fire's presence, because even with the presence of Fluttermane, Fire can like really do a number on this type, but I guess to quickly transition into Fire, Fire has actually been not as present as we thought it would, especially since the recent Suspect test that started like right before, I think it ended right before this tournament started. We had a Suspect test on Heat Rock with Fire, and I thought we would see a little bit more Fire as like a kind of stonewall check, but it seems like it's not doing it as well as I thought it would, and it's also just not getting brought a ton. What is your insight on that?
I think overall everyone was like over like hyped, scared, and prep Fire's presence as a really decent like offensive archetype in this metagame right now, especially with the addition of like defensive Volcarona paving the wave at that sixth slot when Gouging Fire was gone. I think overall, like all the types that people were afraid of, it's just like you could kind of just like utilize like the top seven types in this metagame to really check fire. Like Cerulege will still always be a annoying mod to deal with. Cinderace is does Cinderace things, Fire Pond and stuff like that. But I think people are starting to actually like understand that they cannot like ignore fire's presence in the builder, which is why we're seeing fire not being like used as much because it's so linear on what it wants to do at the end, and it's kind of more of like a fish type right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the fish type stuff because if you look at the uses on fire, it's literally the same 6 months. And every single video that I talk about that I talk about fire, I always say, "Up, it's the same 6 months. It's the same 6 months." Like very occasionally, we'll be creative and have Torkoal instead of Ninetales. Ooh, daring today, aren't we?
Exactly.
But yeah. Fire is definitely a very linear type, so I think that is definitely one of its main weaknesses right now in this tournament. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, we have flying. I get chills thinking about flying ever since that infamous video. Yeah, this type is also kind of like water, where it has a lot of variety in mons it can use. But I would say that there's definitely some archetypes that are a bit more present than others. I would say. What are your thoughts on flying right now?
I think people are afraid to like bring like flying because it's one of the like it's one of the main types that is like overly prepared and prepped for like crazy. A lot of both being coverages, but a lot of people like to try to be offensively like aggressive on their swaps versus like Lysor and stuff like that, and get really punished by it. I think the main like problem with like not even the main problem. I think the main strong point about flying right now is the fact that AV Tornadus T plus Glysaur together is such a good core that holds the type together, and then you just add in like the Corviknight right there, and that's just like Chef's kiss. It could do a lot of things if it really wants to. It could be really semi-stall. It could be hazard stack bulky offense. Heck, we seen Moltres Galar with 100% with a 100% win rate right now. It's still showing that it's that guy. Like I really like am amazed on still like flying like having like 15 games being played as well with a lot of variety.
Yeah, I was told as well that we'd be seeing a little bit more offensive variance of flying, and we have seen that a lot. I've seen the Enamorous teams, the Galarian Zapdos teams, and the regular Zapdos teams doing their offensive stuff, as well as Dragonite. Both the Fat and Setup Dragonite have been doing pretty well. Not Setup Dragonite, Band Dragonite is the more popular one, I believe. But yeah, but Gliscor, speaking of which, has been seen as public enemy #1 for a lot of monotype users. I when I've seen Gliscor in this tournament, outside of like the one game that I don't want to talk about, that this mon seems relatively fine. But what are your thoughts on it?
I think Glysaur is a annoying mon that does a very good job at its role that it wants to do, but I think I think overall Glysaur is a fine mon. I don't think it's like overly busted. I don't think it's unhealthy in the metagame. I just think like it's really a solid mon that really does its job and holds the type together. To be honest, you don't always need to run Glycer on your builds. You could go with, but like people just people just like really love saying that it's a mainstay. To be honest, think Glycer is so creative on what it wants to do too. You could make it a support hazard stat. You can make it more offensive with sword stands. Then you can make it sub toxic if you really want to. The mod is just so flexible and creative on what it wants to do.
Yeah, definitely. But let's take a look at. So we have some of the definitely way less used types in poison, electric, and normal. Now, interestingly, poison has won both of its games, and electric has won none of their games. So yeah, we saw the one electric game, but that one electric game is so sad because of the Iron Head's tragic 5% Supercell slam miss.
Man.
That could have been a victory for electric, I think, even if it had connected. But yeah, that was really rough. But I think electric. What do you think is electric's main issue? Because I think it's mainly the presence of dragon. Dragon just kind of like really does well against this type, and I don't really think this type has good ways to deal with it. But what are your thoughts on why Electric is underperforming?
Honestly, that's kind of the main reason. Dragon's overwhelming presence, the fact that it gets wore down too much by hazards, and you have to rely on Reggie Alecki as a removal. Um, the fact that this metagame it lost, Tapu Koko, Zera Aura. Those are really really mons that Electric really misses. The type is just too slow. It can't really be. It can't be like traditional balance. You can't play balance or defensive with Electric. Even when you try to play offensive, all your mons is just really pretty slow. I think also the lack of the removal of hidden power as well really hurts Electric in this metagame.
Yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, I agree with a lot of that. I thought Electric would get at least one win, but I guess, unfortunately, the RNG guys did not want Electric to win that one game. So,
Always run Thunder Punch, guys. This is like you want a hard hitting electric move, just do Thunder Punch, man.
yeah, but let's talk about Poison. So, Poison actually has decent amount of bonds. I don't know why Sinistcha is basically on here twice, but that's not Poison. That's Ghost. This is Poison, but yeah, Poison. I'm surprised that Poison did well in both of its games because people say that Poison's very easy to counter because a lot of the common stuff in a metagame easily checks it and can easily 6-0 the type. Stuff like Gliscor, for example, is really hard for Poison to deal with. So it was interesting to see Poison still do well despite the fact that Gliscor could potentially drive the type into insanity. So what do you think about Poison and its performance in this tour so far?
Honestly, I think Poison is a pretty bad type right now. It loses out to a lot of things, but we've seen it as 100% win rate. I think Poison is like in the same state as like Fire, but a little more, a little like worse than Fire, as it's really a really matchup fit type like crazy. Like we seen WinCon week one bring like a really semi-stalled Poison build versus a Rain build, a Rainwater build that really had no way of dealing with that. And we seen, I think it was King Choco brought it versus like Dragon as well. And it's just really hard overall for Poison to really make progress. You want to try to like counter stack with it. You want to try to like force things with like any type of toxic, any type of stratus or breakers. But then when you have mons like we have mons like Glycer in this metagame, Arcaldon plus Hudra that literally stops any type of progress. Set of sweepers like Rage and Bolt. Hell, even Sword Sense, Glycer, ground's tremendous presence and everything. It's kind of hard to like really justify a Poison bring in this metagame. Even Fire, like with Cerulege, Ghost as well. Like it's just a lot of types that could just really overwhelm Poison's presence with ease, and that's why I think Poison's lack of like breakers really like hinders this type right now. Like it really misses Needle King, for instance, right now. Like it really wants a Needle King
Yeah, it
in
would
their
really like
comps.
Nido King. At least force Gliscor to choose between full speed or
Yep.
something else. But sadly, it does not exist right now. Speaking of types that, or actually, I don't think Ground misses Nido King as much as Poison does, but Ground is doing not the greatest right now, but it still has a pretty good presence in the tournament. We are seeing a lot of sand, shockingly enough. I thought it would be mainly sandless, but we've been seeing a lot of sand, and sand without X control as well. What are your thoughts on Ground?
I think Ground is still one of the strongest types in this metagame. You cannot go. You cannot. It's like a common like building thing. You cannot go without a ground resist or immunity. Ground is just so spam. The ground moves is just so spammable overall, and you just cannot go without it. We have seen creativity and sand and quote unquote sandless, but with Hippowdon on sand builds without extra gel which people are starting to pick up, that having Excadrill plus Lendl trying to click gravity together is basically so clunky in this metagame right now because you're forcing so much support on trying to keep momentum on Excadrill to the point where you're wasting not only sand turns but gravity turns to the point where you just better off without Excadrill.
Yeah, I agree with that a lot. But I'm also surprised that Great Tusk has been seeing a lot of usage. I think that mon might rise in viability after this tournament because this mon's presence has been very, very notable, and it's been doing a lot in each game it's been in. So, what are your thoughts on Great Tusk's presence in this tournament so far?
A beast mon. I love this mon. It's really nice to to really offensively pressure like Dark to an extent. Dark, one of Ground's main worst matchups is it's like Dark with Ban or Scarf Meowscarada, Specs or Scarf, Greninja or Hoopa U, and like just slapping on a Choice Scarf on Great Tusk to compensate that row compression and to beat that matchup real hard is really most appreciated. It also kind of better yet, it also bullies fire to an extent as well with the proto attack boosts and stuff, so that fire pond doesn't get out of hand. I really enjoy the compression that Great Tusk has been doing, and if you really need like hazard removal to an extent, it could run that rapid spin in that last slot.
Yep. That is, and we did see that, I think, this previous week. We did see a Great Tusk with Rapid Spin. So that is definitely something we've seen before. But yeah, I also like Clodsire just having 100% usage over
Oh
everything.
yeah,
That one is so solid, though.
such a solid mind. You can't. I don't see a reason why you would ever drop Clodsire.
Yeah, I can't think of a reason either. It's just way too good at what it does. Alright, so before we move on to talking about Dark, let's talk about the types that haven't been used at all in this tournament so far, and why they likely haven't been used. So Grass, Ice, Psychic, and Rock are the only types that have seen zero usage whatsoever in this tournament. And I know most of them are considered, well, all of them are considered very low tier types, but what do you think specifically is preventing them from having like a breakout moment like Bug has had a couple of times or Normal has had a couple of times? What do you think is stopping these types from being used at all?
Oh, it's funny that you said it too. Psychic actually was used this week by Fro. Fro used it, but unfortunately he lost that matchup. But I think the reason why is we don't see these types go on. It's just like they just you can't like really justify like a good reason to bring it. It's like if you're trying to like fish like crazy, just like ice doesn't really have the tools to like really fish. It kind of loses to like almost any other type as well. Like you're trying to fish it to beat like flying, for instance. To the point whereas you could just utilize like at that point electric or something, or you could just utilize dragon with like boat beam on like three mons from like the double lotties, or like a thunder punch ice spinner dragon knight or a raging boat. um the lack of hazard removal on ice really like hinders it as well, and as I said about fire, it's so linear what you want to do with ice. You can't spell grass without ass, but grass main vocal point is it, like it really misses like Ferrothorn. It doesn't really have like a defensive backbone to fall up on, and all like it tries to go quote unquote offensively pressure. It just gets like whittled down by so many types in this metagame. Rock is rock. Rock is linear. Rock misses the speed control that it had, and and Shuckle with sticky webs and stuff to really like at least give it a little more breathing room on what it wants to do. And like Psychic just really missed out on a lot of tools, and it just like loses out to too many things. Psychic doesn't really have that much pivoting, and like Teleport doesn't have Tapu Lele in this metagame, which really benefits as well. Um And overall, it just kind of loses out to a lot of types right now. Saru Ledge being an addition to this metagame doesn't make it any more better. It's hard to fit. It's hard to fit like NDD on comps to stop that. Dragapult is strong. Roaring Moon is a menace to society. Flutter main is flood man. There's no swapping, so a flutter main and stuff, you have to rely on like Scarf Hoopa to offensively pressure your horrible matchups, and like flying is hard to like break like defensive backbones like that on Psychic. And I think that's why like these bottom four types is not really being used. It's kind of like if you decide to like you ever like seriously decide to like pick one of those types and you're like this is the week where I'm running. It's just like at that point you're just trolling your team.
Yeah, it's way too risky, especially at this point in the tournament now. But yeah, let's talk about Dark. So Dark has been very present in this tournament. It's the fourth most used type. Has a decent-ish win rate, but one of the main things about Dark, there isn't really much to talk about because I think I discussed a lot of what Dark does really well in my overview videos. It just kind of just does the same thing solidly. The Ascarada is just a very huge threat. Greninja and Hoop Unbound, Darkrai, they're just very solid attackers, and then they just have like a wide assortment of backup partners like Tinglu. Tinglu actually is very, very good, and we've seen a lot of variety in Tinglu's sets as well. And then we just see a couple of other occasional mons as well. I have no idea why Walking Lake and Urshifu are on here, by the way, but...
And Road and Wash.
Yeah, I don't know how they got on there, but yeah. We do see a lot of that, but shockingly enough, Hisuian Samura isn't used nearly as much on Dark as it is on Water. Do you have any idea as to why that could be?
Honestly, I think the only thing I could really put forward is people trying to just be more diverse and creative in those builds. I think people are starting to realize certain matchups that Dark wants to really beat. You don't really need, you know, Hisuian Samurai in that slot. You could forego and start running like, you know, more breakers and like Specs Hoopa Bam Masquerada with like a Scarf Roaring Moon or a Greninja to say Ting Lu could utilize Hydro Stack in that compression, or if you don't really want to, we seen, you know, speedy Ting Lu with Taunt so that you could disrupt not only like stall water but mainly like apply stealth rock pressure on flying to the point where Hisuian Samurai is not really like it's really needed and utilized. Another thing that holds back Hisuian Samurai on Dark, in my opinion, is, you know, the speed tier. I think the speed tier really holds it back when you have like stronger, powerful breakers that are more speedier that you want to like put in that comp position.
Yeah, that is true. It has very hard competition with Yaskarada, I would say. Even with its semi-unique typing. Or, not really unique typing, but with its presence and what it can do, it's still, like, finding itself hard to fit. Especially with, you know, the two super fast mons, or not even two, three super fast mons in Greninja, Darkrai, and Yaskarada. But it has been nice seeing the different types of builds in Dark this tournament. I'm surprised we haven't seen... Actually, speaking of Sableye, I'm surprised that Ghost... We haven't seen any screen Sableye Ghost in this tournament so far. Unless I may have missed a game. Or I'm misremembering, but we haven't seen screen Sableye at all this tournament, which I think is really strange, because I think screen Sableye is, like, kind of strong on the Ghost in particular. But what do you think about Ghost? Do you think Screen Sableye would help the type a bit, or is it still a bit too risky?
I think it's Screen Sableye on Ghost is like too risky on what you're trying to accomplish. Whereas Ghost already a hit or miss type. You know, it's already too frail. It wants to play like it's HO, but to the point it starts like pivoting out and trying to play more as like offensive like in a way, balance in a way. So I think trying to add in like screens like Sableye and one of those cops, it's kind of like you're trying to justify on what is like this, you know, one of the solid standard six that you're trying to drop for like a chance of breathing room or Screen Sableye to go in the long run. I think it's just too risky in this metagame right now, especially in like a tour play where you're trying to really like win it, trying to win your match for the team and stuff.
Yeah, that's fair, I would say. Um, and I think the last type we haven't talked about is a bug. So, bug. I'm surprised it's doing as well as it is. Honestly, it's surprised me with how good it's been and how dominant it's been in the games it's been brought. Even if it is like the same couple of Pokemon, it's done surprisingly well. I mean, Volcarona is just still a really strong Mon, but the other Mons on Bug are also doing really well, like Low Kicks and Slitherwing. So, what are your thoughts on Bug?
Hey man, like I always say, if there were if there's a Volcarona, there's a way, man. Volcarona really holds this type together, but I do love the addition of like offense, like the offensive nature cleaver with the compression it provides helps versus like its bad matchups like in fire, helps versus flying, all that type of stuff. Low kicks is just it's just a really strong threaded in mod that you cannot look past. And I really think having Cleaver, low kicks, and Volcarona all together with with the support of Scizor, I think Bug is a really strong anti-meta type right now. It still loses out to a lot of things, but you can't sleep on when it starts like Will-O-Wisp spamming and Volcarona starts like setting up in the face of those burn mons, man.
Yeah, definitely a very scary thing with Volcarona. But yeah, that should be all the types. So as we move on, since as of the recording of this video, we've only finished week 6. Week 7 is currently happening, and I haven't really covered the games on that yet. But during week 7 and during week 8 and possibly the playoffs and semifinals, what do you think will happen? What types or team comps do you think we'll see as we get into the late game of this tournament? Is it going to be
I
a lot of
think
the same?
I think I think some teams is going to try to run like the same comps, whereas I think like whoever finished off like second, third, and fourth in that semifinal spot might be creative in their comps. I think we're gonna see like a little variety, or even more variety in fairy builds. I think fighting is going to come back with a variety of builds. People might drop certain mons on fighting, which people will like scratch their head on and be like, "Why are you doing that?" And I honestly think another type that's it's still underexplored, but we're gonna see more variety and stuff with it too. It's like ground. I think we're gonna see like more sandless ground variants eventually.
Yeah, I have to see that as well. And I think the only other thing that I would like to discuss is definitely what viability ranking shifts you'll see. So let me try and pull up the viability rankings real quick. Just go here. Let's go to here. Very sloppy. I should have had this prepped beforehand, but yeah. So viability rankings. Let's just go to the meta types. We won't talk about all of them, but like for water, for example, I feel like after this tournament, Hisui and Samurott probably going to go to S rank. Would you agree?
I 100% agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's no way with the performance it's been putting up that it's going to be stay at A rank. It's way too good. And Steel, I think Steel might stay around the same. Maybe Corviknight goes up a little bit, but that's probably unlikely.
I think Scissor might rise to A. That's what I think. I think Scissor might go to A. I think that's like everyone's like go to like last 6 mon right there.
Yeah, that would be
That
fair.
comp.
I would say that's fair. Alright, and let's see. Let's take a look at Dragon and Dark, and then we can wrap it up. Dragon, I think, would stay the same as it is right
Yeah.
now. Maybe Latios goes up to A rank, actually.
Yeah, I think Latias might go up to A. It's kind of like hard to justify why not to utilize Latias, especially on the comps that we've been seeing on Dragon right now. It just provides too much. of a second chance, especially when you're pairing it with Raging Bolt, when Raging Bolt is like a really threatening mon in this metagame.
Yeah, definitely. And lastly, we got Dark. Dark, I feel like Greninja. Either Greninja falls down to A rank, or either Hoopa and Bound and Darkrai both rise to S, but I think that's unlikely. So I think Greninja is like around the same tier as these guys, I would say, and maybe Sableye falls down a little bit.
Yeah, I think Greninja will drop down to A since we've seen builds like not really needing slash utilizing it once you're pairing it with like Ban Meowscarada and stuff. Scarf Greninja it's just so terrible. Sableye has not really been used that much as well. I think that might be dropped down to B. Some people might justify that Sableye is still good, but I think overall as time Sableye is just a do nothing mon, and you rather just prefer the Mandibuzz with the pivoting outplay that it really does to disrupt matchups.
Yeah, I think Sableye is a bit too inconsistent.
I think Roaring Moon might rise as well. I think Roaring Moon might go to B, especially the fact that Volcarona is really such an annoying mon, and it's Roaring Moon is still such a good like speed control while also just bullying the fire matchup even even harder. Like
Yeah, definitely very, very strong mon. Even if it hasn't been like super omnipresent in this tour, it's definitely shown that it's capable of being a threat. But yeah, I think that'll do it for this discussion video. Thank you once again, Boomp, for taking time out of your day to discuss with me about this metagame.
of course.
I'm very excited to see how the rest of NWP goes, and I will see the rest of you next time. Be sure to look out for the overview video for Week 7. That'll be coming out next week. Take care, everyone.
Yes, sir.